Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are come to the end of the month again. We are at the end of July, which means that it's time for another Panda palette update. This year I am paletting my Soft Glam palette from Anastasia. I am trying to finish up as much as I can out of this one. I am doing pretty good. Today is not going to be my best update, but I'm pretty happy with what it looks like still. I'm going to talk you through all of my usage and where I'm standing with this palette today. I also did Franken this palette in the past month, and I posted a video about that a couple days, no, maybe weeks ago, a week and a half ago maybe. So if you haven't checked that out, I would recommend doing that before you check out this update, just so you can see where the new shades come from, because I did add 3 more shades that came from that video, so 3 Franken shadows. But before I jump into the update itself, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So I'm going to insert some footage of what the palette has been looking like. So this is what it looked like at the introduction, as you can see. This palette had a little bit of use at the start of the year. I had a couple pans, but you know, it wasn't like my most used palette or anything. But yeah, it was definitely a little bit used. Over the past couple months, I obviously have kept using this palette. I continuously hit pan on them. I can't remember the order that I hit pan on these shadows, but you will be seeing it in the progress pictures. The first shade that I finished up in this palette was the shade Sultry, which was very, very exciting. So that was the first shade finished. I also later on finished up the shade Rose Pink and then also Tempera. So that's kind of what the palette has been looking like. And also at the last update, by the way, I only had 3 shadows left without pan. And then I also had, like I said, 3 finished shadows. I'm also going to insert now with the footage of what the palette looks like after it's been frankened, so you can see what that looks like. And so I added 3 shades in those 3 empty pans. So that is what it has been looking like, and this is what this palette looks like today. So hopefully you can see some differences, and there's a few obvious changes, but I'm of course going to talk you through all of that in a second. But this is just an overview, so you can have a look at what the palette looks like right now. So yes, this is what the palette looks like now. It's really, really well loved. As you can see, there is, like I said, some obvious changes. And I will also have the pictures up here, what the palette looks like compared to last month. So let me go ahead and go into the usage. So the first shade in the palette is now a Franken shadow, and that is this one here in the spot of Tempera. For this Franken, if you didn't see my video, I used a bit of orange soda and dusty rose, and I created that shade. And that one I have used 3 times in the past month, and I was able to pan on this one, I believe, after 2 uses. So that is the first shade. Next to that, we have the shade Glistening, which I actually didn't use at all in the past month, which is fine. Yeah, you didn't use it. I have some plans for this shade later on, so I didn't use this one at all. Then we have the shade Orange Soda, which is a beautiful matte shade. I was really hoping to get more use out of this one in the past month because it is more of a summer shade, but I unfortunately wasn't able to. Well, I got a couple uses out of it. I used it twice in the past month, so a little bit, but not the best update there. Then in the spot of Rose Pink, we have this shadow right there, and for that I ended up frankening a little bit of sienna mixed with a white to create that transition shade. And this is probably my most used transition shade from like the Frankens. I have used, well, I know it is, I have used this shade 12 times in the past month. It's been a really, really nice, easy transition shade. I've been using it on my lower lash line, again, kind of in my crease, stuff like that, and it's been really lovely to reach for. So I have quite a lot of use out of that shade. As you can see, I also hit pan on the shade. I only believe it took like 1 or 2 uses to hit pan on it because it's very, very thin. But yeah, this one is pretty well used now, and I'm hoping to finish that Franken up next month. Then next to that, we have another Franken shade in the spot of Sultry, and this is more of a cool toned kind of Franken shade, and I mixed the shade Rustic with a white again to create Franken. By the way, right now I will insert a photo of what these 3 Frankens looks like swatched out. And this one is a very, very cool tone shade. And because it's so cool tone, I actually haven't used this one at all in the past month. So no serious use on that shade, but I'm expecting this one going to get a lot of use later in the year. Then we have the shade Bronze, which is another shimmer shade, and unfortunately I haven't reached for this one at all either. Like I said, it's not going to be my best update because I just haven't used this palette as much as normal, but that shade right there I have not used. However, on the top row, lastly, we have the shade Mulberry, which is one that I have used a couple times. I have 5 uses on this shade in the past month. I'm actually using this one today on my outer corner. Yeah, I really like that shade. I have been dipping into a little bit more. So 5 uses there, which I'm pretty happy with. Then let's move on to the second row. And we're going to start off the second row with a bang because I have the shade Dusty Rose. And as you can see, I was able to pan on the shadow in the past month, which I'm so happy with. It wasn't my goal. It was just something that I was able to do anyway. And this shadow I used 4 additional times in the past month for a total of 27 uses to hit pan on it. I haven't reached for it since I hit pan on it. So 27 uses in total, and yeah, I'm really happy to see that because I wasn't planning to pan on the shade in the past month, so it's just a bonus pan, and yeah, it's really exciting every time that happens. So yeah, very exciting, and we're gonna cover kind of the overview of the palette at the end, but I'm really happy with where I'm standing with Dusty Rose right now. Next to Dusty Pink, we have another shimmer shade. It's the last shimmer shade in the palette, and that is the shade Fairy. And Fairy I have used once this past month. Again, not the best, but yeah, I used it once, which is okay. Similarly to the shade above it, Glistening, I do have some other plans for these 2 shades in the future, which is why I am not using them very much. Next to Fairy, we have the shade Burnt Orange. And Burnt Orange is a beautiful transition shade. It's a really nice camely undertoned crease shade, and I love using this one this time of year. This is a shade that I have used 5 times in the past month, so not the highest number, but whenever I have used it, I have used it like almost all over the lid most of the time, so I'm hoping there is some progress in this shade anyway. So 5 uses on that shade, and this one has quite a big pan now. Next to Burnt Orange, we have the shade Sienna, and that again is some of what I used in that shade, but on its own, I have used this one 5 times in the past month, the same as Burnt Orange. I'm actually using this one today, and that is what I'm using in my crease on my kind of outer corner, as well as to blend out that Mulberry shade. So I really like this shade. It's a really kind of beautiful undertone, like warm brown, but it has a bit more like a kind of reddish, pinky, mauve toned. I don't know, it's warm, but it's still like reddish mauve, I would say, undertone. It's really pretty. I really like the shade quite a lot. So I'm happy that I was able to get 5 uses out of it in the past month. Then next to Sienna, we have the shade Rustic. And in the past month, I actually had a goal to hit pan on Rustic. And as you can see in the pictures and right here, I was able to do so. It's a very small pan, but I was able to hit pan on the shade, which is very exciting. It did take me quite a lot of use to hit pan on it. It took me 9 additional times in the past month. That's how many times I used it, for a total of 29 uses to hit pan on that shade. But I'm very happy that I now have pan on that shade too. And having pan on Rustic as well as Dusty Rose this month means there's only 1 shade left to hit pan on this palette, which is that Black Noir. So it's really exciting, and yeah, I'm very happy with where Rustic stands today. Then we have the 2 deepest shades in the palette. We have the shade Cypress Umber, which I used once, and then we have Noir, which I actually used a surprising lot. I used it 5 times in the past month, which, you know, isn't like groundbreaking or anything, but for black, I'm really happy with that. And there is a little bit of a dip in the shadow now, which is nice to see, because again, it's the only remaining shade without pan. So that is all of the uses for this palette in the past month. And again, this is the overview. I'm really happy with how well loved this palette looks. And obviously, like, it doesn't look as much use because I have those 3 Franken shades in, but you need to remember that those are very thin, and yeah, they will be very easy to finish up. So yeah, that is where this palette stands today. When it came to goals from the last month, I did kind of miss out on most of them. The only one that I managed to do was to hit pan on Rustic. Yeah, this one I hit pan on, but I did hit bonus pan on Dusty Rose, which I'm really happy with. But I had 2 other goals which I completely forgot about, and that was to use Bronze 10 times, which I didn't use at all, and to use Orange Soda 15 times, which I only used, well, how many times? Which I only used twice. So not the best for my goals. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let those goals roll over, and I'm going to focus on hitting those goals next month. So I'm going to use Bronze 10 times and Orange Soda 10 times. So those will be my 2 new goals. I think on top of that, I also want to finish up this Franken right here. I think I can do that quite easily. I also want to start getting some more use out of burnt orange. Maybe I can get to use a girl on that too. Maybe I can use burnt orange 10 times. That's really good. I was going to say hit pan on Nor, but maybe I think I'm still too far away from that. So maybe I'll just use it as I can, and then maybe I'll hit pan on it later this year. So my goals, like I said, will be to use bronze 10 times, use orange soda 15 times, finish up this Franken, and use burnt orange. No, sorry, that's not burnt orange. Use burnt orange 10 times. So 15 times, 10 times, 10 times, and finish. That's going to be my goals. So that's 4 goals for this upcoming month. So those are going to be my goals. I actually kind of ended up doing this in the wrong order. Normally I do the weight first and then my goals, but since I've already spoken about my goals, let me move into the weights for this palette next. The weights are going to be a bit frustrating this month because I'm going to explain it later on, but let me just summarize the palette first. This palette at the beginning of the year weighed 162.70 grams, and it has an advertised weight of 10.36 grams. And if I want to reach that 10.36 grams, I have to reach for 0.86 grams every single month to be on track. So that's kind of where I started at the beginning of the year. In quarter one, I was able to use 2.11 grams of this palette, where my goal was 2.58. So I was a little bit behind, but that was okay. Yeah, so that's kind of my point at Q1. In Q2, I was able to reach for 1.6 grams, which is quite a lot lower than my goal. My goal was 2.58 grams again, which meant that at that point I had used a total of 3.71 grams, and my goal at that point was 5.16 grams. So definitely a little bit behind, but that's fine. I kind of realized that I probably won't be able to finish this whole palette, but if I can finish majority of it, I'm going to be happy. So that is where it stood. And then after the Frankening session, I did weigh the palette, and it weighed 159.08 grams. So I ended 0.09 grams. So that is where I was at my last update. It stood at 159.08 grams. And today, this palette weighs in at 158.98 grams, which means that I have only lost 0.10 grams. Which is not good at all because my goal is 0.86. There is a few reasons why I think this has happened. I did actually weigh my palette even like I think a week after Frankening it, and the palette weighed a lot more than what it did after I weighed it after Frankening. So like I said, at that point it weighed 159.08 grams. But when I weighed it in at that point, I think it weighed like 159.26 or something, so like almost 0.20 grams more. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe weighted even more than that. So I definitely think that I've used more than 0.10 grams. It just gained weight, and I believe that is because we are in summer and it's very humid at the moment. I have like a humidity reader behind the camera, and it says it's 50% right now, which is quite high. So my theory is that this palette has collected some moisture just from like the humidity in the air, and my wishful thinking is that when like the humidity goes down in the air, that some of the weight from this will evaporate again, and then it will kind of even out in the long run. So it's a little bit fail for like the weight this month, but I'm hoping again it's going to even out in the long run. So yeah, that is what this palette looks like today and where it stands right now. So that is going to be my update for this month. Again, it wasn't my best update. I just haven't used this palette as much as normal. I've been kind of spreading myself thin. I also have product level up level 5 at the moment, which is my Love Notes palette from Beauty Bay, which has 20 shades in it. So a lot of my attention this month has gone towards that palette because I have to reach for every single shade in that 5 times, which is going to take a lot of effort, as well as hit 5 pans, which is of course also going to be quite hard. So my attention has gone a lot to that palette, as well as some other things that I'm planning, and I just haven't reached for this palette as much as I normally do. Another thing is that I'm working from home right now. So all of July I've been working from home, and all of August I'm going to work from home. So these kind of more like everyday office friendly looks, I'm not doing as much like, the look I'm wearing today is kind of like an office friendly look. So this is something that I would do. But I wanted to use this palette today, of course, because I am updating this project. But I'm just not using this one as much as normal, just because again, I am not going to the office, and I'm not doing those like simple everyday looks as often, which this palette is really good for. So next month, again, I'm not going to go to the office, but I am going to travel to Sweden for about a week and a half. I'm going to bring this palette with me to use quite a bit, and I think I'm going to do more kind of neutral looks again because I'm going to spend some time with my family, and I'm not going to want to spend too much time on my makeup. So this palette is going to be perfect for that. So I'm hoping that that's going to mean that I'm upping my usage a little bit. So that again is going to be my update today. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know how you're doing with your palette projects down below. I always love hearing from you guys. And other than that, I hope you guys are having an amazing day wherever you are, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye guys!